A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, on a Wednesday, we like to get a regular update from Israel and the Middle East, and we're joined by the one and only Mandy Warby to tell us what's going on in Israel today. Mandy, welcome.
Hi, nice to be with you.
Mandy, there's always so much going on in Israel and the Middle East, but what is current now?
Yeah, actually, it's very hard sometimes to sort through the information. There's so much, but I'll start with a bit of an update from the IDF themselves directly, and really what is a precision counter-terrorism operation in the eastern Rafah area, which is in southern Gaza, following intelligence that the Rafah crossing in eastern Rafah was being used for terrorist purposes, and it's the only reason Israel is going in there. The IDF troops actually obtained operational control of the Gaza side of the crossing on Monday night, so last night, with very little resistance. The IDF ground troops began, as they call it, a precise counter-terrorism operation, and this was based on IDF and ISA intelligence. The goal is to eliminate the Hamas terrorists and to dismantle the Hamas terrorist infrastructure within very specific areas of eastern Rafah. So they're not just going to go in there and just blanketly take out Rafah. When they say precision, they are very, very precise in their targeting. Before the operation, the IDF encouraged all the residents in the area of eastern Rafah to temporarily evacuate and go to the expanded humanitarian area in Al-Mawasi, where the IDF has facilitated the expansion of field hospitals and tents to live in. There's increase in water and food, also medical supplies. International organisations that have been working in the area, they have also been asked to go to the same area to get out of harm's way. And all this was done before the operation started. Israel dropped literally millions of flyers all over the area. They sent text messages to everybody with a phone in the area. They used any kind of broadcasting. They did everything to let the civilians know. And I know that they actually landed because there's photographs of all of the leaflets falling out of the sky and all of that.
I'd like to just put in here, Manny, I'm just trying to think of history. I can't think of another time in history when an army like that has done so much to ensure that civilians aren't harmed.
I don't know of one either, Andrew, to be perfectly honest. I don't know what else Israel could do to protect the civilians of Gaza other than not go in at all, and that actually doesn't help the citizens of Gaza because Hamas are brutal. Yeah,
because they're held hostage. So amazing. And so the operation's underway, and so far you said little resistance, so it's successful so far.
So far, yeah. Then there was more intelligence that the IDF received that indicated that the Rafah crossing was being used for terrorist purposes. So the crossing itself was being used for terror purposes. So the IDF troops managed to get operational control, and on Sunday, mortars were fired from the area of the Rafah crossing towards the Kerem Shalom crossing. Now, this means that Hamas was firing mortars from Rafah, where the civilians, all the civilians are. They fired at the Kerem Shalom crossing. Now, that is actually used for one purpose, and that is to get aid inside Gaza to be distributed amongst the Gazan civilians. So they were attacking that very crossing. 4 IDF soldiers were killed in that. Numerous others were seriously injured. So Israel is being blamed for not getting enough humanitarian aid in there, and yet Hamas is destroying the mechanism and means to get aid in there.
And so that's an operational thing, but let's talk about this hostage deal that's been negotiated, Mandy. I mean, this is an ongoing saga, but what is the latest on the hostage deal?
Okay, so what happened with the hostage deal? I would even have to say it's a little bit up in the air at the moment. I don't really know, because the deal that was being negotiated was not going to be very good for Israel. But Hamas refused to negotiate, reject, which is what they do. They reject. And Israel had said, you have a deadline. If you don't come to an agreement by the deadline, we're going into Rafah no matter what. Now, Israel was saying, no matter what, the war is not going to end until all our people are back and until Hamas is gone and lays down its arms. That's the end goal. Now, we can negotiate. There might be ceasefires in between times, but we're not stopping until Hamas is gone and our people are back.
Yep.
And Hamas is just going reject, reject, reject at all costs. So the deadline comes and goes, and Israel starts moving into Rafah, and then Hamas says, we're agreeing to the deal. We're agreeing to the deal.
Okay.
And everybody's all excited about it. There were people in Gaza on the streets cheering and excited because finally Hamas has agreed to a deal, except it was a new deal that Israel wasn't even a part of. It was actually negotiated between Cairo, Qatar, Hamas, and apparently the United States. Israel was left out of the loop. But because Israel had moved into Gaza, everybody said, look, they've reneged on the deal. Israel is not holding up its end of the bargain. Israel wasn't part of that bargain.
Okay.
So Israel is in a bit of a quandary at the moment because she wants to get her people back. But the little bit that I know that I haven't been able to confirm yet is that Hamas would agree to releasing hostages, both alive and dead, maybe one or two a week, with hundreds of terrorists being released by Israel every week over a period of maybe 12 weeks. Yeah. So dragging it out as long as they can, which ultimately means that they'd be using all of that time to regather, recoup, and rearm and prepare for more fighting.
Yeah.
So this is a very, very bad deal for Israel. It's a very, very unfair deal for Israel, especially when, here's my thing, Andrew, and I'm just going into a little bit of personal application here, because if you and I have a conflict and we sit down and we say, here's the agreements of the deal, these are the rules of engagement. You agree to do A, B, and C. I will agree to do X, Y, Z. And we come to this agreement. You say yes, I say yes, and we both have obligations and responsibilities to meet them, right? But if you say no and I say yes, is there an agreement? Well, no, there's not, which means I can't be held to account for my side of the deal when no agreement was met.
Yep.
Israel has had to deal with this for decades with her neighbours, with all the different agreements and treaties that the world has tried to force on Israel. Israel has said yes, the Arabs have said no, no deal has been struck, but then Israel is expected to uphold its side of these deals while the other side doesn't. It's so incredibly biased, and nobody would ever make a demand like that of any other nation. It's only Israel.
Yeah.
So with this particular deal, as of what I've read this morning, I really can't tell you any more than that. I did read a very interesting headline, though, and this was at All Israel News. The headline says this, quote, "One day, the connection between the White House and radical Islamist organizations will be made public." And that was a statement by the former Israeli NSC head, Mr. Eland. So at the moment, Israel is kind of reeling because its quote-unquote best friend is seemingly, I have to emphasise that, allegedly doing underhanded, backhand deals with Israel with her most ardent enemies. So Israel is really feeling like she's standing alone at the moment. It's pretty brutal, pretty savage.
In a really tough situation, yeah. And like you said, that deal, in inverted commas, it looks like just an attempt by Hamas to buy time, because in Hamas's mind, they are at war, aren't they? And they're not going to stop. It will never stop, will it?
Well, Hamas has already made the statement, and they said this very, very soon after October 7, and they've said it beforehand. It's in their charter of why they even exist, for the destruction of Israel. But Hamas actually said that it is their permanent goal to be in a state of permanent war with Israel. They will not. But don't forget, it's not just Hamas. They are a proxy of Iran. But there is also Hezbollah in the north of Israel in Lebanon, who are also an Iranian proxy. And Hezbollah said that if Israel goes into Rafah, that they would absolutely unleash. And so since Israel started moving into Rafah, they have been north of Israel with, I want to say it was over 60 rockets just yesterday. It hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
And Israel is having to go on the offensive there. There was, I believe, numerous suicide drones came over from Syria and they're all claiming that they caused all this damage in Israel, which they didn't, but they're firing. And of course, Yemen, I want to say Yemen has launched something else also from the south coming up via Eilat. And not only that, but Iran, they have actually come out and made a statement. They're posturing again. They've actually said to Israel, you don't know what you've started. Yeah. In other words, they're about to get themselves involved again big time. Now, they fired 350
missiles,
cruise missiles, surface-to-surface missiles and suicide drones. I was there when they did that. It came to nothing because God neither slumbers nor sleeps and he watches over Israel. But if Iran fires again, first of all, will America stand with her? Will Jordan prevent the rockets coming in? Will the UK, when you've got all these countries around the world saying, we want to now stop helping Israel arm itself?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting days.
It's so volatile. It is so volatile, isn't it? And this whole peace treaty thing, it reminds me of when the West tried to go into Iraq and say, we're going to bring democracy to Iraq, get rid of Saddam Hussein. It's so naive, isn't it? And I think it's the same thing. We tried to say democracy will work in Iraq. It didn't. And like you said, saying to these terrorist organizations, a peace deal or a peace treaty is going to fix it. It's not going to fix it, is it? Because it's a different paradigm, isn't it?
It's a different ideology. It's a different worldview and mindset. And the other thing that I would emphasise, and we can finish on this if you like, you have to understand that definitions matter. When in our Western mindset we say we want peace, we know what we mean. We mean an end to hostilities, let's be friends, let's live with our disagreements and get along with each other.
Yep.
In fundamental Islamic ideology, peace means you submit to Islam and then we will have peace. They're two different paradigms, completely two different definitions. Same word, but different definitions, and we must keep that in mind, especially in that very volatile part of the world.
Yeah. Mandy Warby, as always, so insightful. You've got such a depth of knowledge about Israel and the Middle East. Really looking forward to our update next week. And I suppose to all of our listeners, we'll say, let's pray for the peace of Israel.
Absolutely.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.